Waiter.
Cheers, yes.
Okay. All right, rock and roll.
Good afternoon and welcome to the Sunday Spin. I'm Vinny G. Glad you could join us for a very, very special afternoon here on the Sunday Spin. As always, we're brought to you by our fine sponsors, What's Left Records in Colorado Springs and the 719, the Ostro Brothers, Kevin Chanel, and Grooves Records in San Francisco, California, right there on Market Street in the city. And the Anonymous Collective and Anonymous Pacific family of artists are bringing you the Sunday Spin. As always, I've got my partner in crime with me this afternoon. Greno, who you got for us this afternoon?
Oh my gosh, we got the Kings of Brother Rockham, the 64. We got Scott and Brian Hylbert. What's up, boys?
What's up? Good to be here.
How are you guys doing today?
We're doing, I'm doing great, all things considered, you know. Happy to be on here with you guys. Been really enjoying all the segments, and it's an honor to be included and be part of the family here. So thanks for bringing us in.
Well, I mean, you guys absolutely are a part of the family. We go back, gosh, 30, 40 something years. I don't know. I've known you guys, and it's just great to have you guys on the show. Again, legends of the 64, and you guys have moved on to bigger and better. Now you're located in Tennessee, correct? Are you guys in Memphis?
Yeah, both Tennessee, Memphis, and Nashville.
Spent a lot of time out there over the last 5 years, guys, and was following you closely from the small town of Gallatin. And my regards to everybody out there. That's 615, correct?
Yeah. I
was following your careers very closely over the last couple of years, and I want to congratulate you both. Really, you've been running the gamut and representing the 6-4 in fine fashion. So congratulations to you both.
Thanks, Vinny. Appreciate that. So you were, so we both live in Nashville, but we've kind of adopted Memphis as our, the place we like to go in, as a band, play a gig, record, see music, just kind of run around. And
Music City.
It is kind of the real Music City.
Very different. And if you wouldn't mind, maybe you could talk a little bit about the difference between Memphis and Nashville musically, because it was something I had to learn being there. It's not just a 4-hour drive. It's a completely different culture that you brought up a little bit. But if you could expand on that a little bit, I'd love to hear your theories on the differences between the two cities musically.
Yeah, I'm going to defer to Brian on this because he wrote a great song for the last record with Charlie about kind of our visits to Memphis. Take it away.
Yeah, Vinny, I mean, there's a lot to get into that. I don't want to get into the weeds too far, but I guess I would encapsulate Memphis as this great, this great sort of kingdom of yore that is just awash with a faded glory that is, just barely under the surface. I mean, you don't even have to dig hard. Once you pull right into town, you feel it in the atmosphere. You kind of feel the tradition of, Ardent Studios and, of course, Sun and Stax and you know, having grown up and been, you know, really immersed in, from the very first, the British invasion, you know, you of course get into what those guys were pulling from, and it's the you know, it's the Delta blues. It's just a great tradition that takes us through into the late '60s, early '70s, when Alex Chilton and those boys, Chris Bell, were really just like taking it up a notch in terms of taking this gem, all of this information that's in their blood from growing up, and filtering it through their Anglophilia, which I think, speaking for Scott and myself, and I think for Chris and Shay too. Shay, of course, who is from Memphis. He is he's our man on the ground there. I think that just opens it up. It's so fascinating to unpeel all the layers of, you know, where the Brits and the Anglophiles were sort of taking this cross reference and making something amazing out of it. And Nashville, I'll let Scott talk about Nashville, but yeah, it's a different history, just a different tradition, definitely some overlap, but you know, Scott can speak to that a bit.
Well, also, like Memphis, you keep finding more about Memphis and its influence. You know, back in the day, I mean, we've been listening to you guys talk to Tim Ellison and Chris and Rob. Oh, Fez, what's up, buddy? You know, talking about the influences on Outrage and the Nephews, and you guys were all into Arthur Lee, and I never got on that train until much later, but I remember it, and it's fascinating thinking about, you know, Love basically being from Memphis, right? Because I think
Originally, yes. Like me and Arthur, you're absolutely right. Yeah.
And for them to sort of reunite in LA, it's like a Stones, you know, like Dartford train to London thing. Like, oh man, what have you been doing, mate? You know?
Yeah.
So it just
true. Yeah.
It gets richer and richer. And I think, you know, the other thing about Memphis is, you know, our mom, Nancy, she might be out there listening.
Yeah. What's up, Nancy?
Yeah, Nancy in the house.
Hey, but just real quick, you guys, your mom is an amazing vocalist and musician. And so that's just to let people know it started from Mama Nancy. So,
yeah. And she was a huge Elvis fan, and she was, you know, just absolutely, you know, I mean, she was #1 fan, went there when she was 16. We years later took her there, not too long ago, actually, for Thanksgiving. We did like a, you know, just to hit all this, you know, hit Graceland again and
Pilgrimage.
Yeah, pilgrimage. And so it's kind of like, you know, it crosses generations. It crosses all those, you know, the socioeconomic, the cultural, racial, you know, music vibe. I mean, it's all kind of can be found there. And I think that's one thing that's fascinating about it. And now switching over to Nashville, you know, Nashville is more of like, you know, the commerce music city, taking nothing away from that, but it's more about the industry, and people love living here from other places because it's a real, you know, musician community. And there's industry here, and you can, you know, you can be here, and you used to be able to make a living pre-COVID. But, you know, I think people bring the influences here from where they came, and, you know, that new Nashville stew is a little bit more about, you know, kind of getting it out to as a you know, a widget, I guess now, as opposed to. And people will say, oh, you know, Jimi Hendrix, Jefferson Street. There was a lot of rich history here, but, you know, I don't think of it as, you know, it's just a little different than Memphis.
Sure. And I would agree 100% with what you shared with us, and I really appreciate it, because I definitely have that insider view, having recently moved here from the 615. And as a matter of fact, I lived on Johnny Cash Boulevard. You know, I was 2 miles from the gravesite where he and June are buried, and not far from the house that burned down, which of course is owned by one of the Gibb brothers now. But yeah, the musical history is everywhere if you want to see it. We were 2 blocks literally from the TBN studios, where there's been a lot of iconic performances, to say nothing of the downtown area and what's going on. But you used a term, and I really want to applaud it because it's a great definition. It's commerce country there. And I think you hit the nail on the head. And it really sums up my 3 years there, I can tell you that. So thank you for sharing that with us. But how about some roots? Let's talk a little 6/4, because I'm a big fan of the early stuff, as you know. I like to traipse down memory lane, if you don't mind. So hey, talk about your 6/4 roots and a band that we loved called Blues by Five.
Yeah, Blues by Five. Yeah, thanks for bringing that up. You know, that was, you know, I think our first gig was with Outrage. I can't remember if it was down by San Diego State or if it was in Poway. Might have been a house party, but you know, I was thinking about that kind of leading up to this conversation, and I think the first flyer we did was Fez. You know, drew up this thing. He's like, "What's your band name?" And we're like, "I don't know. We better ask Jason, our leader, what's our band name?" And you know, all of a sudden I see a flyer, and Fez says, "Yeah, too late. I made you guys. I gave you a name. We were the Dalmatians." and he has this incredible, like, you know, 1966 poster with all of his, you know, his drawing, and there we are, the Dalmatians for and I think somehow we were able to evade that name quickly and became Blues by Five, and I'm sure it was an Outrage Blues by Five double bill, don't you think?
Oh, absolutely. And I mean, you guys, like, you know, we always looked up to the nephews and stuff, but I remember you guys were one of the first local bands that I was like, these guys are good. Like, these guys are going to give us a run for our, these guys are, you know, Duncan Millar on drums and Alex. I mean, you guys were tight. And Scotty with the guitar and the amazing harmonica playing, Scott, which I've always admired about you. Yeah, you guys kicked ass. And I was like a little bit, you know, because when you're young like that, you know, you obviously embrace it, and it's cool to see other good bands. But yeah, you guys were a little intimidating to the Outrage camp in a good way.
No. You guys, heck no. You guys were more together than us, I think. You guys, Alistair and I had been playing, you know, for a while, like kind of messing around, trying to get something started. What was kind of interesting was, you know, I was friends with Alistair in middle school at Meadowbrook, and then Duncan was his little brother. I mean, Duncan back then was, you know, tiny, and you know, it didn't seem like Duncan would be in our band because it just seemed like, you know, he was, you know, everything is back, you know, when you're that young, 2 years younger is like, you know, seems like, you know, super young. Absolutely. And so we were getting our thing together, and you know, it was Alistair and I both playing guitar, and then Guy Benson came into the picture.
That's right.
And Guy didn't know, you know, he didn't play anything, and we're so, well, you know, why don't you play another guitar? We'll put you on second guitar. We'll get you up to speed. And then Alistair decides, well, I'm going to play bass. I'm done with guitar. So he takes his. This is a replica of Alistair's guitar when he was 15. Cynthia's mother drove us down to El Cajon Boulevard, one of those shops. It might have been Jim's House of Guitars, and we got our first like legit guitar, and it was that. And Vinny, you have one of these Olympic white Strats, don't you?
I absolutely do. Thanks for remembering. Sure, I have for years. It was borrowed. I had to give it back and went without for a while, and very recently found another. Yeah, but there's just something about that cream colored
Oh yeah.
6-string Stratocaster that just does it for me.
And you know, we had that. Alistair had it, but everybody, you know, you play it and it was like, wow, this is way better than the one I got at Ozzy's music shop, you know, like just no comparison. And we had to take that back to get him a bass. And so he traded in for that Gibson Ripper. Anyway, long story, but we coalesced as a group, got Duncan on drums, but you know, Outrage were this thing that was like, wow, man, they have like this vibe, man. They have this really cool, like, you know, music vibe where they're writing songs already. I think Stair Step to Abandon was already a thing.
Yeah.
We're just
85.
85. Yeah, I mean,
Cool song.
Scotty, do you know what this is? This is the Everlasting Summer Gobstopper Blues Caravan Experiment, which you and Alistair are both on. There's 2 songs that you guys, Rock Me Baby and then Hey Joe, and it's me, you, Rob, and Alex. So it's like Blues by Rage or Out 5 or, but I found that today and I was like, oh, damn. I'm like, here, there's the credits. Let's see, there's Scotty. Right
Wow, what a treasure trove.
Monica. And then Alex played bass, but Alex is a rip-roaring bass player. I just remembered how, like, you guys, when Alex moved to bass, I mean, you guys were, and then Duncan was just top-notch drummer, you know, had the snare, like, kit, just had it down. Like, you guys were awesome. I loved it. You guys always played killer covers, too.
well, that's all we could do because we didn't have any originals yet. And so we were just trying to curate like a kind of an interesting garage pop 60s kind of thing. But we were really, you know, you guys writing tunes and just being such a creative force was inspiring because it eventually, you know, we didn't have enough runway in that like 2 years of starting the band and then like, you know, graduating high school and kind of splitting off a little bit to really get the original stuff together. But we were starting to, and we used to play, you know, at those scooter rally shows, like New Generation.
Very well, yes. Yeah. Those were always great crowds, by the way.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. Bart Mendoza presents, right?
Right.
Fuck, we got to get him on the show. But hey, guys, so let's segue a little bit here. So you came into the picture musically. I know that you and Scotty are have some years apart. So how did you come into like playing music? Were you looking up to Big Brother? Were you, you know, I mean, I know you wanted to do your own thing and whatnot and find your own path, but kind of how did that coalesce?
Yeah, so I was just going to say, you know, listening to Scott talk about the early Blues by 5 days. You know, just for their own amusement, they would pull me in for you know, the end of rehearsal, and they do Louie Louie, and I try to scratch out a vocal at, you know, age 6 or 7.
Wow.
Yeah, man.
So just the amount of like osmosis and sort of wonderment of like being in his nasty bedroom with anarchy symbols everywhere, and you know, Pistols posters and LPs. I mean, that's great stuff, and that certainly gets in the blood. But yeah, I really didn't start, you know, much different path to Scott. I kind of like sheepishly played guitar, maybe picked it up, you know, 16 or 17, and you know, didn't really play much, but started to get the itch, and you know, played a little bit away at college, just, you know, and some little cover things, but didn't really start writing until after college. Would have been 2000, 2001. Moved up to Portland, Oregon, just without any real direction. And that's when, you know, I had a Tascam at that point, a 4-track that I still like to do demos on. And, you know, I had always kept in touch with Scott and followed his bands in his San Francisco days. And
Buckeye.
Yeah. Imogene, Solomon, Buckeye. And and at some point, you know, felt emboldened enough to send a couple of little rough demos Scott's way. And he was in Pittsburgh at that point, and I was sort of literally working on the night shift with the forklift.
All right.
Yeah, I was driving a forklift in a warehouse by day, and holed up in a depressed downtown Portland apartment in the evenings. Really getting into like Velvet Underground and listening to way too much Big Star Third, and that really set kind of the tenor for some of those early recordings. And anyway, Scott and I kept in touch, and that's how Ik Ben was born. It was me not really seeing much in the forklift stratosphere, and so I moved out to Pittsburgh, signed a 1-year contract in Pittsburgh. He sold it as Ashley and I are going to be here another year, and we're thinking of pivoting to like Austin, Texas, or somewhere else. And so I thought I could do a 1-year free agency out in Pittsburgh. And so really we packed a lot into that 1 year of collaboration and basement recordings, and it really had what I would imagine a little bit of that Big Pink, basement tape sort of spirit behind it.
Yeah, I'll be honest, guys, when this thing came out, I was super impressed. Like Brian, I didn't even know that you really played that much. Scotty, we go back forever playing music together, and that's what made it so special to me. And like, oh my God, you guys still, like, I was listening to this the other day. These songs are timeless, man. Ik Ben, like all the music that you guys create is amazing. This stuff is so dear to my heart, though. It's like, because it does have that kind of 4-track essence, but it's still produced really well. It's still done in such a, like, the performances are really good. Like the last song, Well-Timed Rain, is like one of my favorite songs of all time. I'm just being real. Like, I love and it's so nice because you guys are friends and family, but I really enjoy I'm just a true fan of the music. I just want you guys to know, yeah, when this came out, and then just like this picture of you guys chilling on the couch. Where's this, by the way?
That's actually a bit misleading because that picture was taken after we had skipped Pittsburgh and come to Nashville. That was like maybe a month into living here, and in retrospect, it seems wrong to not have some art from the basement where we recorded some of that stuff. But
that's still rock and roll mythology, though. But people, check out. They've got All Rights Reserved Records. It's on Bandcamp. We'll talk about all these. We have so many releases and things to go through with you guys. We're not going to be able to do this in one show, right, Vinny? There's just no way. All the things, and then. Also, Vinny and Scotty, the Rolling Stones is in the DNA so deeply, but we have so much to cover. But yeah, I just wanted to let you guys know. And then you guys followed it up with another EP and then an album. So if you guys want to go into any of those experiences, I know the album was a totally different experience, right? You recorded that at a studio, correct?
Yeah, so there's a pretty clear lineage between Ik Ben from the Red EP to the Orange, then to the Green record. Yep, and so kind of like those are sort of brother sister EPs, and then you have this one was the third, and it's Green. Hey, we're going with a color scheme thing, right?
Great packaging too, by the way, fellas.
Wow. Brilliant.
Yeah. And the Green, for us, it's kind of gotten forgotten. We don't play that one a whole lot. I think we're starting to talk about like pulling some of it in, but it kind of got done and didn't really get road tested like I'd really like to do it. So some of those ones really haven't been played. What happened was we jumped into this one, the upper middle.
Look, Brent, yep.
There it is.
The inspiration right there.
Exactly. I love it.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Scotty.
But yeah, so we just became like all about kind of the recording hang, and getting together, once a week with the, it's like poker night. Our poker night was like write tunes, record them, rehearse them, but never really search for any validation outside of that. I mean, the fact that we can you guys validate it for us, for you to say, oh man, like this stuff. That's all. I mean, it's such a cool thing to, to have the sixth floor listening.
And Pageant Queen, are you kidding me? I want to hear that. I want to hear that live.
Well, Pageant Queen, when he sent me a demo of that, that was the first stuff I'd heard of his. He was in Portland and he sends me this 3-song demo, and it started with, I think it started with Pageant Queen. And I was like, man, where does this come from?
I know.
But it's all like, you can imagine him being in Rancho Bernardo, like going to, a church so our mom can rehearse the solo at, she's going to do Sunday, and he's kicking it in this place. He's probably like, 6 years old, and he's just like, man, churches are sort of kind of weird when there's nobody here and just, a soprano vocalist. And so, you start hearing the lyrics to that, and I'm like, yeah, that's sort of his whole, probably 15 years of music, starting to, want to come out, that creativity. But
great tune, Brian.
Yeah.
Those lyrics. I mean, Mrs. Constantine really is the reference point for rolling under the pews and sort of staring through stained glass, and really some of that church imagery that was super formative. But yeah, it was intimidating in a way to like even be sending Scott songs, because it's like, dude, he's been doing it since I was, a wee lad, and there wasn't any sense of like competition. It was just more of like, oh man, I don't know if I'd share this with anybody, and certainly not somebody who's got chops. But I think it was just, it's one of those things, perfect storm of like opportunity of, both of us being in transitional places, Scott with a wife and, a baby boy, and I just, kind of in that post-college doldrum of, man, if I don't do this, like, what else am I going to do? So it was a real roll of the dice, but also, sort of a safe thing that you're going to like hang out with family. And so it was just perfect. And I think moving down here after recording those songs in Pittsburgh on the Red EP was a real, I don't know that would have been able to do it if we hadn't had that real sort of sense of confidence and self-assuredness, not as like, oh man, we've done this thing that is going to be super marketable and sell, but just something that we really believed in from a song standpoint, especially from a vibe and a performance standpoint. Yeah. And it allowed us to come down here and sort of, I think, have an early sense of identity, and not come down here and be like, whoa, we're getting pulled this way and that way, and like, trying to fit this style or that style. I think that was a really important marker.
Yeah, you guys use 4 tracks. I mean, Glenn, it seems like you've the way you guys you mark on your liner notes on your Bandcamp page about like kind of how it was recorded and who's on the tracks. I think the Nephews sort of do that too, where you can like the historic aspect of it. When we were kids, going to Licorice Pizza and getting a new album, you bring it home, you spread it out on the floor, you crank side A, and you just study everything about it. And then you try to figure out like, what's Bob Ludwig doing in Maine mastering records? Like, what? But it's like that 4-track stuff, when you're the artist and you're recording it yourself, you get so close to like you're so immersed in the process that every decision is like an artistic, it's your intuition. It's maybe by accident, but it's like that is so close to the creation that, you know, when we were doing the Red EP, it was us doing it all and figuring out, hey, do you know how to play drums?
Right.
But I'll go try, you know, some, you know, rudimentary, but you get to that, you know, that essence. And then, you know, the flip side is going into like the new stuff. You know, it's like, oh, we tracked at Blackbird Studio A.
Huh.
We tracked at Brown Owl. The green one we did at Ocean Way.
Yeah.
And, you know, you're dealing with like,
Way.
Ocean Way.
yeah. And, you know, you're dealing with like people whose own you know, handprints are going to be on it, how they want to mic something, how they're running, what their favorite plugins are. And you get so removed from it. And sometimes that's really cool and liberating. And the sounds are, you know, out of this world, typically in a big room where they're doing all that. But when you get so close to the process, you know, that's so rewarding, right? It's kind of like when you do your demos on your iPhone and then you try to like redo it a couple more times, you're like, man, I like the first one the best.
Yeah.
You know?
Yep.
So raw. And, you know,
I like what Tom Waits says. There's no such thing as a demo.
It's true though, really. Yeah. And what a great way to think about it, because
Well, let me
sometimes
say it in a different. There's no such thing as a demo. Another San Diego person that gets really overlooked, honestly, as being, you know, like, oh yeah, he delivered pizzas. No, he's from El Cajon, and a vastly underrated songwriter, in my opinion. But yeah, thanks for bringing that up, Scotty. That's a very eloquently put. And just so you guys know, you are being treated to the Hylbert brothers here on Sunday Spin, brought to you by Anonymous Collective Music, the great folks at Grooves Music in San Francisco, the Sexy Boys in Colorado Springs, Brothers Ostro at What's Left Records, and hell, we're looking for record places to sponsor us. So if you want to, we'll do a little tour if you guys want. But yeah, we love you guys, and we're just having a great time. My boy Vinny G in the house, asking the great questions, the meaty stuff. And I know he's got another one for you guys. So we'll let him.
I do, yeah. Yeah. Thanks, Greno. No, and this comes from experience as well, guys. You know, I have a brother. My brother has a doctorate in music. He is
Brother Rock.
Right. Yeah, he's a professional musician. And, you know, Brian brought up very, very well. It rings home so true to me. He's the first guy I go to. What do you think? And I'm not getting it as his opinion as a classical musician, as somebody that has a doctorate, but as my brother who knows me better than anybody in the world. And the dynamic that's there, the language that's spoken, is something you can't put a price on musically. For myself, it's one of the joys I share with my brother. And I was curious, you know, are there things? I know there's an age difference. My brother and I have an age difference as well, 9 years to be exact. But the language that's spoken, the comfort level that's there, for somebody who's never been in that situation, I would love to hear the benefits and maybe the things that are a little harder to deal with as brothers in a band.
yeah,
Brother Rock, baby.
just ask the Kinks away.
Go ahead, Jim. No.
It's been, you know, there's something about, you know, they used to say about the Beatles, their voices were since they were all from the same place, you know, the same area. And there was a way that their vocal blend really worked. And I think that's a really neat thing to have, where, you know, I can sing really easily along with Brian's stuff to the point where it's like, you just know where you, you know, where your voice fits. Do you go, you know, a third higher? Where's the harmony? And it seems like that's something that if you have that, you have to exploit it. You know, like I'm not like super good guitar player. I'm not really a super
Liar.
great lyrics. I'm not a great singer, but when you blend voices together, right? All of a sudden, man, that's tough to do. That's really tough to find a good blend. And so to me, that's always been like the number one thing is you have these songs, and when you can get those, that vocal thing, that's something that is kind of special. It's not always, it doesn't always need to be, doesn't need to be overdone, but when it works, I think it's a really nice thing. Sometimes I think I can't always hear the difference, who's singing what. There's some of that Red EP where I was like, I went to work, came back, and Brian had done some tracking and some overdubs, and I was sure he replaced my vocals with his on a couple of his tunes.
You did, didn't you, Brian?
Got caught.
Brian's
Ashley came down and she was like, "That's Scott's part." No.
You guys pulled a Steely Dan, right? Go to lunch and your parts erased and you're not even on the record.
Well, yeah. And now that's what we have to worry about. Chris Woolsey back there. He's such a great producer, arranger, and can play everything that I'm always just like, hey, that sounds like you went in there and did my part better. No,
so yeah, let's just briefly go into, and then in more detail, the upper middle. Like you guys, I see bandmates back there behind Bri. So why don't you guys tell us a little bit about your bandmates?
Yeah. So Chris comes into the picture for the Ocean Way LP.
Okay.
Had become friends with him over the preceding years, a few years. He moved here around the same time as us from Manhattan. And so his influence is certainly all over the Green album. Writing cool parts, the production, he's doing all the production on that, doing a lot of overdubbing at home. He plays that incredible fuzz guitar on Scott's great track there, Signal. And that's where we really started to become tight with Chris. And it was just such a great fit. It was like a third brother had come out of the woodwork, speaking all the same language, all the same unspoken language, a lot of the same influences, but he also brought a lot of his own cool influences to us, and hopefully us to him. And so that's where that's kind of the early beginnings of the upper middle. And once we get into the record Behind You, interesting to hear Scott talk about, like, I'm not a great singer, and I feel
I know.
I feel the exact same way. Like,
break.
it kind of felt like a band without a real, born to be lead singer. And then once we get to the upper middle, Charlie Degenhart comes into the picture. And here's a guy who's got an absolute, like, just drop dead, okay, that's a lead singer's voice. Just the power, the emotiveness, I think he's pretty famous for his enunciation. Charlie.
That one, guys. Go ahead. You're good, Brian.
What'd you get? Did you get the grape? Oh, you got the grape jam finish.
Yes, sir.
Oh,
Nexy, huh?
Sweet. So it's interesting to A/B that first upper middle LP with that Ik Ben LP, because things change quite dramatically when you do have this influence, this singer who's like really bringing a different angle. And Charlie comes from a different tradition. He comes from King of Prussia, Pennsylvania, the Phillies suburbs, and it was just really a lot of things coming together, like this burgeoning partnership with Chris, and then Charlie coming into the band, and he has a solo career of his own. And so it's fun to watch that transition, because even listening to it now, it gets real different, and it's real fun.
Yeah, I think just let me add something about Charlie. Like,
yeah.
Charlie was here he was here a little before us, but also, you know, a transplant, trying to find his scene. When we sort of met up, it was like, wow. Brian and I were going to play a gig in Indianapolis, and we were listening to Charlie's new EP the whole way. We called him. I don't think I think I had his number, and I just called him from the road. I was like, dude, this is fantastic. You know, what's going on here? So he had done this record with George Marinelli, who is like the stonesiest, funkiest, you know, guitar kind of, you know, he's Bonnie Raitt's guitar player, and he's such a great player in this sensibility that he brought to some of Charlie. I think they co-wrote some of the tunes. We were like, man, that is just fantastic. But he didn't have a band, and so each time he wanted to play, it was like, you know, going to the family wash and trying to find a couple players. Like, hey man, who's in town, you know, in 2 weeks? So we all started, you know, playing on each other's stuff, and you know, you got to showcase. Yeah, I'll play bass, love to, you know, and you get together and kind of back each other up, and then that just kind of merged into this upper middle with Chris. And you know, it's great that Brian brought up the brother thing, because Chris is sort of he's my big brother in the band, and I'm, you know, Brian. We're more. You know, we've done the brother thing. Now we're just, you know, brothers in a band with another guy who's come in and just connected on all those levels. And then now Shay is the little brother. But yeah, I'll let Brian get back to that. He was on a good rant there.
So what's this beast? This is the brand,
baby.
right? Yeah. This is brand new, correct? Yo.
So
All
this
right,
is-
Reserved Records.
Yeah,
That's
you can go to our site there. Videos. We've got a really cool surf video for you San Diego boys and girls.
Yeah.
A lot of cool vintage surf footage to go with one of our
Awesome.
singles from this one. But yeah, so this comes full circle from, like, you know, DIY basement recording stuff. Kind of the theme of the art here is you've got Blackbird, the world famous Blackbird Studios there, where we did a full week. I think it was last May before COVID May. We did a full week at Blackbird and got 5 songs out of that session. And then we did 3 right down the street at Brown Owl at Russ Long's place. You know, just shortly after that or shortly before that, I can't remember. But so we're talking, you know, like state of the art Neve boards and, you know, Neumanns everywhere, just surrounded by Neumanns and AKGs, and so really just, you know, classic recording techniques, but like, you know, the world's greatest power tools. And so in mixing that, Chris, you know, doing the bulk of the mixing on that back in his studio it's so cool. I mean, so cool to be able to like have those live, because we live for that, you know, recording live in a studio, tracking, just that adrenaline rush. I remember we were all that first day, like punching in at, you know, 9 a.m. at one of the great recording studios, and you know, sort of playing dress up in a way, but
Yeah.
took it really seriously. Like there was no fooling around. We each wanted to squeeze every, you know, drop of energy out of our time there, and it was really amazing to be able to do that, and then to be able to play with them on our own time back at Chris's place to do overdubs and
Yeah, and also like the you know, we were tracking in Studio A, and we were overdubbing in studios G through L. I mean, it was this compound, right? And so 2 days in Studio A, and then all of a sudden we're out of there. You know, hey, you guys are done there. You guys are now in here and here. They've got a central, you storage for moving the tracks from one session to the next, I think in real time. Like, it's amazing. And so Brian and I got split up. We're doing vocals in 2 different studios on days 2 and 3 and doing overdubs. And we'd sort of meet for lunch, and it'd be, I'd be like, hey, Chris, Brian, what'd you guys do? Oh man, we did some cool stuff. What'd you do? I got busy on the Mellotron, man. I got this Mellotron, Hammond, and all this stuff is, happening, and it's like, it's seamless. There's no more like, all right, waiting around for somebody to do an overdub. It's like you're working the whole time. All right, let's go percussion. What do you hear here? Meanwhile, the Kings of Leon are loading in Studio B with their thing, and you got all these other studios, cranking away. It is pretty exciting. It's probably worth, mentioning, full disclosure. We're not, paying, we don't have a budget for Studio A, Blackbird recordings. So there's always kind of an angle, right? I mean, it'd be nice if we had the budget, but we're doing for the tracking sessions, we're doing this thing with the Blackbird Academy, where they need bands for their academy to learn how to, position the mics and do all the stuff. And so it's kind of, for us, it doesn't matter, because we're in the studio using great amps, guitars, and doing our songs. But they're also teaching these students how to do all this. And so, you get like, you're not paying Studio A rates anymore. You're doing it in a way that's more affordable. But
you're right, though. It doesn't matter. I mean, we find ourselves there, and if you guys would just picture this, I'll never lose this image, but I think it was day 3. We're in, Studio A's key room. So it's this overdub room that's probably 700 square feet. You've got your baby grand. You've got your, what kind of piano was that, Scott? You tickled the ivories on that one. Was that a Yamaha? Or?
No, it was a Steinway. It was a Steinway, Hammond B3, the Mellotron, couple Whirlies, a Whirly and Rhodes, like,
So I'm on the floor sitting, cross-legged on this Persian rug, and to the east of me is the Mellotron. To the north of me is the Rhodes. To the west of me is the Whirly that I ended up using. And then there's the Hammond. And then the Leslie speaker is, 15 feet behind me in this ISO booth that we ended up recording vocals through, and some keys. So it was just like, and I'm sitting there not playing any of them. I'm playing tablas on the floor. You like that, Glenn?
Super awesome.
Yeah. So just pinch me moments,
Hey, Vinny, have you listened to any of those Stones outtakes that got dumped to YouTube like this summer? All the tracking with Brian playing the Mellotron and all that satanic stuff in between the buttons.
Yeah, very cool. Who knew?
I mean, they were making the fact that they're tracking that stuff, and you can hear all these takes, and there's no vocals, there's no. I mean, it's such a tight band, but it reminds us that Brian was such a big part of that.
Yeah.
That's, as they're recording it, like he's, hey, I'm going to use a Mellotron, or I'm going to,
Yeah.
Just amazing.
Marimba.
He was that guy. I like the, what does he play on Yesterday's Papers? It's like marimba or something like that.
Yep.
Yeah, it almost sounds like a xylophone, if you will. Right.
Glockenspiel or something.
But yeah, they lost a lot of their experimentation, their creativity, and from my thinking, the musical soul when they lost Brian. Not that they became a better band, a worse band. That's not for me to say, but they did lose their soul, I think.
Yeah.
And it is tragic, obviously. But
we would all concur.
Yeah. One thing I do want to mention is I wanted to congratulate you on your book, Scott.
Thank you.
what an incredible story.
Task list, baby.
Yeah. I would love to hear, what was your motivation? Because it's been a big hit. I've seen you on TV doing interviews, and I'm always able to say to my friends, my friend, they say, no, he's a musician. I say, yeah, he's also an author. So, walk us through the process.
Well, so the process for that for me was I had started. I found myself in a career in advertising in the alt country, or the alt news weekly business. So like San Diego Reader, I was with San Francisco Weekly. It's part of Village Voice, part of New Times, and I was doing this advertising gig where I was selling ads to the concert promoters and the record labels and entertainment stuff, which I liked being part of that, but I always felt like I really wanted to be on the side of editorial. I wanted to be a music editor. I wanted to be a journalist, and I got just stuck where I was, and I was okay at it, and so I kept going further down that path. And I've been thinking, how does one jump that fence? It's a pretty clear division in the media business traditionally. Here's how the revenue side, versus the content side. So I started, I started researching how to get out of my gig, have a second career doing something else. And I pursued this program at Vanderbilt, a creative writing program. So started getting into that and really figured out how to craft a story, because I wasn't really satisfied with my storytelling in songs. I was always like, man, I need to get deeper. I need to learn the craft. I'm good with just sort of ideas and imagery, but I'm not, I'm not satisfied. So it really took learning the craft and figuring out how to do that. And then at that point, I wanted to, write about my own stuff and write about what I know and work out kind of, your past and figure out, ask some questions, answer some questions. And what Task List ended up being was it was like one part business plan, one part memoir, and then one part just trying to exercise what I've learned in fiction writing. But the fact that it was marketed as a thriller caught me by surprise, because I didn't think I thought it was sort of like, yeah, it's a cool, kind of rock and roll memoir with a technology kind of good and evil sort of, subtext. But they were like, no, it's a thriller. We're going to publish it as a thriller, and, you're going to be a thriller writer, and, we're going to get you on, Sony's going to want to pick it up for, a series and all this stuff. But, the long and short of it is that is a pure fantasy rock and roll memoir of, it's so much of it's true, but so much of it is kind of obscured by a more of a tech business plot, or some of the names and, faces have changed to protect the guilty. But my intention was just to write about my time in San Francisco and seeing it from the perspective of somebody who is, has a hand in a lot of that. But I wasn't like a tech, I wasn't in one of those, big tech IPO companies that made everybody, they bought their first couple of houses. I watched it, and I told somebody that, I was the only, sucker who got out of San Francisco in the 90s without a, without a big liquidity event. It was like around me, it was all happening. And then, that was also the reason why I wanted to leave San Francisco, is because it just got too expensive and out of control. And, it's, it was a tough place to stay, but thank you, Vinny, for, mentioning the book and trying to
how can people find it?
Yeah, where it from my vantage point, it really made me look deeper into just all the talent we have just from our neighborhood. And, you know, music notwithstanding, because we talk about it every week, to have, you know, an acclaimed author as part of it, not for me, but maybe to the rest of the world, gives it a little more validation. I mean, Greta, what do you think?
Oh, I think that our community is, I mean, most of us are in our 50s, and it's a peerless community. It's not like, oh yeah, my dad was playing music, you know, in his 50s. And even when we all laughed at the Stones when they were in their 50s playing, and we're all still, right? Bam, we're all still doing it. And
yeah,
doing it well. And like, that's the whole thing about why a show like Sunday Spin works, is because it's a community of people that are very passionate about and Renaissance folks. You know, Scotty, one thing, we'll have to have you and your wife on the art show that we do, because Scott's wife is a very established photographer. You guys have your own studio, White Avenue Studio. I mean, we're at an hour right now, guys, and there's no way that we're going to be able to possibly cover the depth and all this. I have more questions for Brian, all that. But since we are at an hour, let's kind of assess where we're at, and we don't want to take all of your time. We know that you gentlemen are both very busy and things. Would you guys mind hanging out for a few more minutes, covering a few more questions? And again, Vinny and I would love to have you guys on again. It's impossible.
Absolutely. Open door policy, right. Yeah,
it's impossible to cover everything in one show. I mean, this is a musical history. Scott, you brought up Vanderbilt, and you did a project, an album called Man with a Hoe. And, you know, and Brian, you have an awesome single that I was really digging, the Semi-Solid State. So go into that a little bit, Brian. That's on some really luscious bubblegum vinyl too. So people can pick that up on Bandcamp as well under the All Rights Reserved moniker. But yeah, talk about, is that just you?
Yeah, so
Gotta get in there.
Yeah, brother's definitely on that stuff. I mean, yeah, it was just kind of a between album cycles thing, like, you know, having a couple of notions to throw something out, and that's where the bloke alias came about. It was kind of like almost like a random name generator. Like, take your 4 biggest influences and see what comes out. So it was like, of course it was farcical, but like, you know, I like to think of my biggest is Bach, and then Beck, and then maybe Bjork, and Blur, and what comes out, bloke, pulling from each tradition. But no, that's very much of the same family. I mean, that's Chris Woolsey playing and producing, and Scott. Scott's on some of the new stuff too that we just recorded last month, kind of a follow-up. And so the idea was to do an A-side. You know, I've always been really fascinated by the stuff that the Stones and the Who and the Kinks were doing, what they were doing sort of between albums, and the stuff that maybe ended up on, like, you know, a greatest hits or a US pressing. And so the idea was to do like an A-side, an original. And then we've always got all these obscure covers that we want to give some proper treatment. You know, we were watching, I think it was either the Tim Ellison show or the Fez record, and you guys were talking about, I think maybe it was Rob saying he heard somebody playing Arnold Lane, and it was just like a game changer. And it's like, dude, we cover Arnold Lane, like, you know, these days regularly. Yeah. But yeah, so that's where that came from. And you know, Long Haired Lady, the B-side, is about as deep a cut into you know, a genius's work as you can get. I mean, even on that Ram McCartney album, it's kind of forgotten. I listened to a 2-hour podcast from some local guys who are in a Beatles cover band here, and the only song they didn't even really mention was Long Haired Lady, which totally made my day, because that's the song that's really sticks out to me when I hear that, because you've got this post Beatles domestic bliss sort of vibe throughout that record. Exactly. Thank you. And you've got Paul and the lovely Linda all over that record. It's really a duo record. And you know, myself with 2 young daughters and a lovely wife, that song really spoke to me, and it really it was important for me to give that song some cool treatment, and to even one up Sir Paul by getting my kids on it, not just the wife. So that's
so cool, man. And Ram's such a fun record. It's like there's so many great songs on this. I mean, even the simplicity of Ram On is beautiful with the mandolin and all that.
Yeah, it's a very happy album, and you can tell that Sir Paul is in a time of his life where he wanted to share that happiness, that he wanted to express it, and he came through his family. So, you know, yeah, what a great cover. And it's nice to know that you're hopefully having the same feelings as McCartney did when it was released, because you deserve it. You both do. You've paid your dues. You know, you're both very talented. You've been giving to your communities. You know, I do wish you happiness. So it's great to hear. It really is. And congratulations.
Thanks, Vinny.
Oh, yeah. And Scotty, I want to go backtrack a little bit to The Man with the Hoe, because this is a project that I really didn't know that much about. Of all your music, you know, it's really one of the ones that I was least familiar with. I listened to it a few times, love it. And again, I just want to harken back to your harmonica playing, sir. It's magnificent.
Oh, thank you.
And it fits this, again, this is more of a country folk type of project that you can speak to, but again, it's fabulous, man. And Brian's on it too, and other members of the upper middle as well. So yeah, talk about that and the link with the event. Was that like a senior project or?
Yeah, it was a capstone project, kind of a thesis that I put together, a musical and lyrical collaboration, and it was inspired by a lot of this the California literature, sort of turn of the century, Gilded Age. I read this book by Jack London that he wrote towards the end of his life. I mean, he died when he was 40. He was super young, but he was you know, just you know, he was writing for money. He talks about it, and that's so there was a lot of output. And then there's this somewhat forgotten novel called Valley of the Moon, which is kind of a neo hippie sort of back to the country, you know, leave the strife of the city, you know, live off the land kind of idea. And in this book, there's the wife, the female lead is a ukulele player, and she's singing songs along the way, and like, you know, learning from the Portuguese how they do crop rotation, and then hanging out with the Bohemians down in Carmel. And I was seeing all these lyrical pieces in there, and I was thinking, man, how has Bob Dylan not mined this for an album? And I decided I was going to put together some songs to you know, fit these lyrics. And they were fragments, and so it would be like that fragment. Okay, I need to you know, write the rest of it, and here's the music I'm you know, feeling. And it was very folky, very, you know, basic, you know, melody and not a lot of changes, but try to keep it sort of campfire, keep it folky. And
Yeah.
And it was super fun, man. I recorded that. Remember, you know, Guy Benson from Blues by Five, he and Alistair still make a lot of great music in Washington, D.C., and they're still playing a lot and making records.
Awesome.
Yeah. And they're, so Guy sent me his Pro Tools setup. He's like, I got a new setup, you know, here's my, I'm going to send you my old one. And so it's kind of like not really 4-track, but I was treating it the same way. I was figuring out how to do a basic Pro Tools, and I recorded the demos to that myself, again, being so close to it, you know, not overthinking it, just like, here's how the song goes. This is, this guitar's in the left channel, this one's in the right, maybe a bass up the middle, some percussion. But ended up working in the studio with Roger Mutino on that. Great locally based producer who's done a lot of great stuff. And he and I kind of holed up and fleshed it out, and had Brian came in, Chris Woolsey came in, but
Vibraphone, baby.
yeah, you played some vibes, right? Yeah.
Brian,
Yeah.
multi-instrumentalists.
Jonesian.
Brian, you guys are doing some string stuff on it too. Like one of you was on a bouzouki and one was on a fiddle, and
Yeah, we tried some like pizzicato stuff that I'm not sure if it made the final mix or not, but yeah. Chris is pretty handy with banjos and fiddles and all kinds of stuff too.
Yeah.
So awesome.
Hey, Vinny, I wanted to ask you, what kind of stuff are you doing now with your music? Did you guys collaborate on something?
Glenn and I collaborate all the time. Yeah, the Mulligans, Stair Step to Abandon.
Yep.
So
Yeah, we got a version of that was still pumping. People
I
love
heard
it.
that's the one on the Bandcamp, right?
Right. And I'm glad you brought it up because, when Glenn and I got together for the Anywheresville compilation that Ick Ben is on, we said, we want to do an outrage song, which one? And I immediately picked Stair Step. It's, it was my favorite era.
Yeah, it's a fun song. It's that was a collab with Robbie Nefke. Shout out to Robbie and all the Outrage guys. We're gonna try and have some. What we should do is have an Outrage / Blues by 5 reunion. And Bri, you're gonna have to be included because I know now that I never saw the footage, but now that I know you were doing Louie with them, that have to get you involved. But we should do like maybe sometime around the holidays. That was something that Rob actually suggested that we could do. Again, it's so great to have you guys on the show. We'll definitely gonna have to have you guys on again to talk more. And I just want to say thanks so much for getting into the meat and potatoes. This was like a really intricate show. Like even, we have the greatest of musicians just like yourselves on, and a lot of people just fanboy out, which is great. They geek out on records, and we can have a whole show just on that with you guys. But thanks for getting into like the detailed meat and potatoes of what you guys do. You've been doing music for so long. We didn't even get to Scott 76, which is another project that I absolutely adore. Scott, just so you know, the Mona Lisa song is my daughter Roxy, it's like her favorite song.
Thank you.
We love it. And I actually put it on a compilation. The family goes to Moab every year, and so I make every year I make a compilation, and they're always like, Dad, is Mona Lisa on this one? So fantastic song. But I just want to thank you both. Vinny and I are just so blessed to have you guys on the show, to know you. I want to give a special shout out to your mom as well. A person that I admire and have known for a super long amount of time. And just again, I know that, she inspired you guys to do great music. And show the upper middle. Show it again and again and again and again. You got the front, I got the back.
So there's a lot of San Diego allusions and imagery throughout some of these tracks for you local folk.
Look what I got too. I bet you don't have that. I got the sticker. Yes.
Yeah, and so, Bob, Bob has always been a great supporter of your music and my music.
My dad.
Book, and he's just
absolutely. Yeah, Scott, he loves the book. Again, like when Ick Ben first came out, he was on it before I was. So I had to and then now of course, there's no way he's got the Ick Ben knowledge that I do. But I want to talk just before we go, the song Fair Weather Friends. Like, damn, where did that come from?
Yeah, good question. So Scott and I moved down here with the Ick band. I think we had just mastered it up in Pittsburgh, and drove down to Nashville and rented this this little converted garage from an LA guy. I think he was like, you know, what was his name? Lorne. Yeah, cool guy, bass player from LA.
Lorne Rawl, and he's back in LA. He's a fantastic guy, and he's still doing a lot of touring when touring work, you know, is a thing.
Okay.
So his little so his property backed up literally to the Cumberland River. So Scott and I would, you know, we only lived there for, you know, a month or two while we were kind of finding our feet and getting jobs and stuff. But we had a little, you know, outdoor space that backed up to the muddy Cumberland. You know, you'd have to scamper down a poison ivy laced hillside, which I learned the hard way. But yeah, I just remember kind of having that weird little D strum with sort of an odd, not seventh, but I'm not even technical enough to know what to call it, but that variation. And yeah, it was the first thing I really worked on when we came to town, just those first few days of not knowing anybody. And I don't know if that leaks into the lyrics there, but you know, probably more of a holdover of like Portland depression, you know, like,
yeah,
it's got some dark sort of imagery, but kind of has a, you know, I think a sweetness to the vocal, and a sort of kind of a raunchy little you know, lead guitar thing that was
yeah.
I have to admit was probably not through a vintage amp, but through a what was the modeler, you know, those Line 6 modelers. I think I cheated.
The Pod.
The Pod, yeah. So, yeah, glad you dig that one. That's one of those deep cuts that we rarely, if ever, have done live, and cool stuff.
Yeah, it'd be fun to pull.
I'd love to see an Ick Ben reunion someday. And if you guys ever need a drummer, I'm your boy. I know all these. I know all those songs. I mean, I know you guys have other people that could do it, but it would be an honor to even just do one song with you guys.
Yeah, well, Scott, you should mention that we did a little something with Steve Barnett out here, right?
Remember what?
Wow.
Stevie B.
Another 6'4" legend.
Well, there's kind of a story behind that. Several years ago, Alistair came out, aka Alex Millar, came out here from DC, and let's see, I think, I don't know if Guy was here, but you know, Robert Quinn was living in the area back then, and so we, you know, somehow I knew Steve. I don't know if we'd seen Steve, but I knew Steve was in Memphis, and so I called Steve and said it'd be great if you came out and surprised these guys, and you know, just show up and, you know, have a hang, and so we did that, and his code name was Bart Stevens, and so we kept telling it, you know, how our friend Bart Stevens is coming. We just got to keep an eye out for him. And so Bart Stevens became this thing. And then when our band went to Memphis the first time, we stayed with old Bart Stevens. He was living in this incredibly big, you know, sharing this incredibly big midtown sort of mansion with some other roommates. And you can do that in Memphis, you know, and he was playing, we saw his band play, and went to some crazy, you know, bicycle festival. And so, yeah, bikesploitation. But yeah, so hooked up with him there, and, you know, I think Steve's still out there playing in bands, still getting after it.
Do you guys remember Fiction Rose? That was his Poway band with Mike Sangri.
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah. And isn't Mike down in at Full Sail in Florida recording? He's
you know, I'm not sure. Yeah, and
yeah,
wasn't Carlos in that band too? Carlos Solomon.
That, I think that does ring a bell. Yeah.
Yeah, the fiction rose.
Alistair and Duncan still keep up with Mike. They're still in
That's
touch.
awesome.
Yeah.
So yeah, we just want to give a shout out to all the 64s. Definitely. And you've been digging on Sunday Spin, a very, very special edition. We did the 1 o'clock Pacific today. We went over, but we never go over because there's content up and down this show. We love our guests. It's all about our guests. It's all about our sponsors, Anonymous Collective, Anonymous Pacific. We got Skeletons of Memory, What's Left Records, Colorado Springs, Sexy Man, Kevin Chanel, Grooves Records, San Francisco. Vinny, did I leave anything out?
I don't think so, man. I think you covered it, brother. But yeah, my thanks too to the guys. It was long overdue. Thanks for sharing your memories. I'm definitely going to have you back, but thanks for the love. Keep doing what you're doing. Keep representing. We're always very proud of you both.
Thanks, guys.
Yeah, thank you guys so much. We're going to end the show with a little treat from the Scott 76. You've been watching the Sunday Spin. Oh, before we go, guys, let people know where we can get your music and your book.
Absolutely.
All Rights Reserved Records.
There you go, Bri.
There's your URL.
I'm right there with you. And what about Zitasklisk? Tattered Cover, Denver?
Yeah, Tattered Cover did an event there. Warwick's in good old La Jolla, San Diego. Get it on Amazon.
Oh.
Whoa, what have we here?
Oh, a band that's near and dear to mine and Vinny's heart.
Look at these monkeys here. Good eye, guys.
Oh, I just want to let everyone know before we go that Bri came out with a chainsaw. And that was his appearance onto the show. There it is. Yeah. A little a la Michael Keaton in Mr. Mom. So, but yeah, what a fantastic show. It was a blockbuster, baby. So just so folks can know, we'll have it up on, it's live on YouTube right now. We'll also have an archive version up on YouTube, Facebook, Sunday Spin page. So love and kisses to everybody. Stay happy, stay positive. Listen to records and listen to a lot of Upper Middle and Ick Band because they're awesome. And
Hey.
check out Bloke as well.
And thanks, guys. You guys are doing awesome. We love this this program, and
Thank you.
it's great hearing what everybody's up to. I'm so proud of hearing about Fez and Chris's Chris hanging out with David Aguilar.
Woo!
And Tim rocking with Music Machine.
I was gonna say we didn't mention Music Machine. Thank you for that. I think every episode we've mentioned Music Machine and we gotta mention Brother Rock 2 Red Cross. We love you. We're gonna have them on the show eventually as well. But yes, hats off to Brothers Rock. We love you guys so much. Thanks again for your support. I was gonna say something at the end, but I don't really remember what it was. Oh yeah. Everybody get out and fucking vote. All right. And Frank Zappa's not on the ballot this year. So no funny stuff. All right. And we're going to end it up with little Mona Lisa. Here's Scott 76, Sunday Spin. We'll see. Oh, I know. We'll see you next week. Colin Estes. So turn in. He's got a new album out called Our Favorite Prodigal Son on Anonymous Collective. You guys will dig him a lot. Check him out. All right. We'll see you guys next week. Vinny, love you guys. We'll see you next time.
Peace out, guys.
Peace.
Oh yeah, that piano intro.